Game of the Year? Bold claim, I know, but having now rolled credits on a 76-hour long playthrough, Rise of the Ronin is not only a game I highly recommend, but one I'd go as far to say you need a PS5 to play it, if you don't already have one. Why?
I don't care if you're tough.
Gameplay. Rise of the Ronin is simply just fun, challenging, frustrating, overwhelming, but above all else, simply fun. First, let's start with the tools at your disposal. You have multiple blades and weapons, from tried and true katanas to bayonets, great swords, oxtail blades, and more. You can carry two different types of blades as primary and secondary weapons, and you're gonna want to do this, as each weapon type has its own unique fighting styles attributed to them. Now, some of the fighting styles are shared across weapons, but your attack speed, movement, and damage all vary per weapon. This is important because you will frequently be switching fighting styles mid-battle, which is as chaotic as it sounds. The style switching mechanic can be boiled down to, some styles are more or less effective against enemies, and others are average against them. But if you're fighting multiple enemies, you may be at a damage or movement disadvantage, so you have to make split-second decisions on what you want to prioritize. This prioritization comes down to the weapons as well. Some enemies may move way too fast for a greatsword to be effective, even if your fighting style is effective against them. Others may like to get close, and you may want a bayonet to keep them at bay while still doing damage. There's a balance that has to be found with every combat encounter. Finding that balance is a requirement, not a suggestion, because this is a Team Ninja joint. You will get your ass kicked, you will die, but you're not powerless. Almost every action in combat consumes stamina, so that's attacking, dodging, guarding, and taking hits. While attacking, you can recover some stamina back by timing a press of R1 right after an attack lands. This is dubbed a key flash, and an even better timed key flash will also allow you to deflect an enemy attack whilst you also regain stamina. So with the core fundamentals of combat, you have multiple factors to consider. What weapons your enemies have, their fighting style, which can change during boss fights. If they're a huge lad, I hate these guys, creepy qualities, and your environment. Everyone is tough in this game. There's no blade fodder. Even if you're over leveled, if you get careless, you will be struck down. That balance is always in question because the game really pushes you to play on the aggressive side. Everything takes stamina, so you may as well be attacking. But knowing when to dodge out of the way, knowing when to hold steady and guard instead of attempting parries, is all part of the recipe. You can have a plan when you enter combat, but that plan is always changing. Stealth is also an option, with takedowns and long-range shots available for you to pick off a few weaker foes if you want to get a jump on the crowd. But they're not always one-hit KOs, so you can't rely on them for every situation. There's also a grappling hook, which allows you to throw staggered enemies at a wall or into each other. You can also throw explosive barrels and poison-filled containers at enemies for elemental damage. But anything you can do, they can do too. Status ailments also affect the player if you're hit, but again, you're not powerless. And if you get the timing right, you can deflect them, adding that ailment to your weapon attack. And this always feels satisfying to hit, and painful when you don't. I haven't even mentioned the sidearms yet, which consist of rifles, bows, and revolvers. Bows are for long-range stealth takedowns, and you can get back your arrows. Rifles do more damage, but are, loud. Through my playthrough, the revolver ended up being a favorite of mine, always keeping a variant at my side. It saved me a fair few times when I picked a fight I couldn't win.
I challenge you to a fight to the death.
You'll lose. I'm better at fighting than you.
Rise of the Ronin's combat is addictive, engaging, challenging, but fair. The environments, vistas, and variety keeps things fresh, and even something as simple as an enemy camp pose their unique challenges and multiple approaches for you to take. When your core mechanics are so good, refined, and complemented with stellar level design, even the most basic of tasks never get old. Oh yeah, this game is also like an open world RPG. I knew very little of this game going in, so I was surprised when the game kept revealing a larger and larger scope with each chapter. You start the game with a really in-depth character creator, making 2 characters, before going into the first mission to get you accustomed to the game's mechanics. After that happens, you'll meet Ryoma Sakamoto, and then plot happens. I don't actually remember anything that happens in this game apart from the actual environments and set pieces during missions. The plot isn't bad, it's not annoying, at least, or frankly even boring as I watched through every cutscene. It's well produced and well acted, but incredibly generic. If you like story-based games, then you might want to stick with Disco Elysium.
Hey. Psst. Psst. Yes, you. Word on the street is you're ready to start building communism again. Yes, you're ready to start building communism again.
As for the role-playing aspects, Rise of the Ronin is an RPG when it wants to be. Early on, you'll be able to unlock speech checks for persuasion, lying, etc., but these are basically different options for saying yes. The story and responses don't offer much in the way of differentiation between each dialogue option. You can't talk someone out of something, or talk someone into something, or really have many options in terms of tone. Occasionally, you will be forced to make larger story-altering decisions, however this doesn't affect anything but a couple of missions. So say you have two rivaling parties, you can side with party A, but still do missions and hang out with party B, regardless of choices you made previously. It's shallow, but at the same time has some weird investments made to it, such as the romance system. Yeah, you can date a select few characters in the game, but it's no Cyberpunk. Overall, the plot of Rise of the Ronin is there because it needs to be, and the role-playing aspects feel like they're there to check off a box for marketing. Definitely a mark against the game, but let's be honest, who comes to Team Ninja for a story? The side missions, by contrast, are far more interesting. Not because they're better written, but because a lot of them make use of unique environments or mechanics, helping keep the combat fresh if you're somehow getting bored of it. There's a bunch of unique camps, bases, and interiors you'd miss out on simply going through the main story alone, and these missions pack as much as a punch as the main ones, so they're well worth playing. All of this is spread across 3 locations. I didn't know the game had multiple maps when I started it, but it does. Your journey will take you from Yokohama to Edo before finishing in Kyoto, each with their own unique atmosphere and natural beauty to discover. Traversal is fast and fluid, with the glider and the aforementioned grappling hook at your disposal. You'll be frequenting the skies and rooftops. What makes this world so satisfying to navigate in is due to how hands-off the movement mechanics are. There's no specific walls you can climb or in-depth animation system for parkour. You run, jump, grapple, and glide. That's all. If you want to climb a tower, which isn't mandatory by the way, or infiltrate a building or reach atop a mountain, the game isn't too overt on where you need to go. Now obviously you're supposed to reach these places, but it's a far cry from yellow paint and objective markers right on top of where you need to go. The most the game ever gives you is a general direction. There's many such cases where you'll have to move away from a treasure chest or collectible cap to actually reach it in the end. It really is a breath of fresh air that respects the player's intelligence. Now, what's there to do in this open world apart from explore? The aforementioned side missions, of course, and random events. Now, there's only a handful of variations for the random events, but some of the people you help in the open world might show up again to give you a unique side mission. There's also gliding challenges, combat training if you need to get good, horseback archery, photography, and firing ranges. I wouldn't say there's a lot to do in this game, but they provide a fun distraction. The real bread and butter are the core mechanics, the traversal, and combat. I genuinely believe these 2 things alone are worth the $70 asking price. I knew nothing of this game apart from it existed and that it came out, so one might say I had no expectations, therefore I enjoyed it. Well, I also had no expectations of Starfield and came away thinking, yep, that is a video game alright. Rise of the Ronin does what a lot of big budget video games fail to do, and that is provide a core, engaging, and truly rewarding experience. One that isn't tied to progress bars, meters, and fancy animations. Those things are there, but the game never asks you to do it, nor do you really even get anything of value doing it, apart from certain characters that help increase the damage output of some fighting styles, but really you can just spam gifts at them and get it over with. There has been some discourse online that this game isn't the prettiest. To me, it just looks like every other video game, but admittedly, it is lacking depth in regards to its narrative elements, though I don't care. I keep saying it. Its combat, mission design, and environments are more than enough to keep you engaged. It kept me hooked for 76 hours. And when it comes to video games, it doesn't matter how well told your story is if your gameplay loop is unengaging. It doesn't matter how big your map is or how much you fill it with if it's a slog to navigate in and get through. These elements being good are always appreciated, of course, and done well can absolutely elevate or make the game. But what sticks and what ultimately will always stick is gameplay, because that's what you're here for. Gameplay in a video game. What's that? So you're not convinced, huh? You say that gameplay is important, but video games also need Troy Baker, ray tracing, and content. Okay, well, indulge me for a bit, as I change gears to a different game. A game in a genre that I figure most people who clicked on this video won't be familiar with. I promise this will make sense. Need for Speed Unbound is the latest entry in this long-running franchise. Some say this game is terrible, others say it's better than expected. I say it's the best racing game on the market right now. Now, a brief overview on this market. I can play racing games with more cars, more content, larger maps that are better looking. And I do. But you know what none of those games have? This yellow meter. Burst Nitrous makes this game. Much like Rise of the Ronin, you're incentivized to play aggressively, while at the same time finding a perfect balance. In Rise, that balance is attack versus defense. Will you go for an extra hit on an enemy that's low on health, or dodge out of the way? In Need for Speed, this balance is driving in the oncoming lane, where you might get jump scared by traffic, driving close to cars, and executing turns with Burst Nitrous, because it negates forward momentum and pushes you in the direction in which the nose of your car is facing. Burst Nitrous is gained through drafting, near misses, drifting, or gripping, which is like going through a corner without drifting, but like fast. It makes sense when you play it. This mechanic helps you exit corners far quicker, closing the gap between opponents, but comes at the risk of an accident because you are propelled forward and you cannot dodge what might be in your way. But the satisfaction of a well-executed turn and that instant euphoria that comes when you narrowly avoid a skill issue is simply unmatched. The track design in Unbound is excellent too. There's hardly any shortcuts marked on the map, but plenty of spots where you can save time if you have the speed to do so, because they will all take you off-road and slow you down otherwise. And they are treacherous. A shortcut in this game requires you to prepare for it and have the skill to navigate through it. Your punishment for failure is death, but the game provides you with all the tools you need to excel. Unlike other racing games which are so scared of you getting bored they throw cars at you and reward you for failure, Unbound isn't afraid to be challenging. And it also doesn't explain anything. You will never know that Burst Nitrous negates forward momentum until you figure it out. This mechanic isn't even consistent to the untrained eye, as there's a certain angle your car has to be at to get the greater benefit of it. Drafting, near misses, the minutia of choosing between sliding or gripping through a corner, none of that macro strategy is ever explained. You have to feel and learn the system. It's not always faster to drift through a corner, and it's not always quicker not to. It entirely depends on what you're driving, where you are on the road, what and who is around you, and where you want to be in 5 seconds time. There is a constant flurry of decision making going on that you're not really consciously aware of, constantly teetering between being a badass and getting a sore ass. There are objectively better racing games on offer right now. In fact, most people are playing them instead. And there are objectively better action games than Rise of the Ronin. But the feeling of perfect parries, barely getting through a fight by the skin of your teeth, dropping down on enemies and simply gliding and climbing around to complete the open world checklist is something that's lost when just looking purely at a feature list. Just because the game has more to offer or promises more to you, that doesn't triumph the quality of experience you're getting. For instance, fast travel is free in this game. What a concept. Rise of the Ronin didn't promise to change the gaming landscape, nor did it even come close to doing so. It doesn't excel with all of its features, but it's a damn fine video game. A fun, demanding, refined breath of fresh air, in an industry that often forgets that video games still need to be games at the end of the day.